Welcome to the BWI Live Postgame show. I never know how to start these because I know what happened in the game in terms of the X's and O's, but you're not here for that. There is a bloodletting that I see already in the chat. Let's go to our favorite Mac the Mustard Man. Oh, for some reason, the chat reset when we went live. So, Mac the Mustard Man, here early, he said, I don't want to hear about negativity ever again. Yeah, he's right. Penn State has to prove it before they can be given the benefit of the doubt at home. That's where all the money was all week long. The Vegas believed in Ohio State. The line was for Ohio State. They come in and get it done. 20-17 in a predictably low-scoring offensive performance. When you consider the fact that they scored exactly 10 points, 3 of those came in the first quarter, and one of them was a defensive touchdown. 2 field goals on the day it's just not enough. No matter how it happened, that is not enough. So let's just let's start there. They put together one drive of 14 plays that was 8 minutes long. The rest of the first half, the defense was on the field. 3 and out, and then 6 plays, 30 yards. That was a punt to end essentially their only other drive of the first half. Now, they did have their 2-minute drive that ended in an interception in a wild play. I don't know that I've ever seen a game where 2 touchdowns were taken off the board by turnovers in the back of the end zone. So I guess there's a couple of opportunities that this team had to drive down the field and score touchdowns, but really that's what it came down to. They settled for 2 field goals inside the 20-yard line. The first one, you say, okay, early in the game, your opening drive, you get to a situation where you're going to try and you're early in the game, don't chase points, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can't defend the 3 runs at the goal line. The minute Tyler Warren didn't score on that play, I went, ooh, that's not great for Penn State because they haven't proven that they can put the ball in the end zone recently. And I guess the only thing I can think, what they were thinking with that 3-play sequence was Tyleik Williams, the best run defender for Ohio State, went out of the game on the play. I think it was on the Tyler Warren play. So they tried to run up the middle at the defense 3 straight times. But why wasn't Tyler Warren given the opportunity to run the football in that situation? Bo Perbula wasn't given the opportunity to run the ball in that situation. Nothing against Kaytron Allen. Absolutely nothing against Kaytron Allen. But you've shown throughout the season you have the opportunities to give different players the football at the goal line. And Tyler Warren, 260 pounds, was he tired? Is that the rationale? That 4-play sequence could have tied the game, and instead Ohio State salts the ball with 5 minutes left in the game. That's going to skew a lot of the things here in this analysis of the run game wasn't terrible. The run defense, I should say, wasn't terrible. We can get into some of those details. Obviously, it wasn't good, but Ohio State, I guess this is the problem. Ohio State ran to the right all game, and Penn State couldn't stop it. They just couldn't stop that because Will Howard ran the ball for the first time all season. Really, they kept the quarterback in the quarterback kept the ball in the option, and Penn State's defensive ends aren't necessarily built to play in space. I mean, Vanover, Denine Sutton didn't play a whole lot that I noticed in this game, and Smith Vilbert, those guys are big physical players out in space. And what Ohio State was doing is they were loading one side of the field, running the quarterback or the running back into the boundary, and trying to take advantage of those athletes in space. Again, you don't care. So let's get to some of the comments here. Jason Nauman, listen, this is some epic trolling. Jason, normally he's got the thumbs up on every single video. Yeah, poop emojis is accurate. Offense is trash. Tim Gunner says not blaming James Franklin here. You know what? Yeah. So Virginia Slim, that's I kind of agree with that. We just went over that. Hey guys, but we had over 111,000 in the crowd. Yeah, it helped when it helped, except that it didn't. T. Frank, I respect you, man, but don't act like the reaction here isn't anything less than reasonable. I'm not. I in these situations, my guy, you'll find that I'm not here to defend anybody. I'm not here to, like, this is not a company line sort of show. I told you in the week, like, I'm betting on Penn State because I believed in Andy Kotelnicki and his ability to generate offense. They've done it in every single game, even if it's come in fits and starts. And I said, I don't know where the points are coming from, and they didn't. And so I was wrong about that. Be mad. You're allowed to be mad. I told you coming in the game, they had an opportunity to win this one. They were at the goal line. They were at the goal line with the football, with the opportunity to tie the game up with 5 minutes left. So you are right. Ultimately, the score and the predictability of Penn State losing to Ohio State is there. But Penn State could have won this game. And to me, I think that's the damning thing is the last 2 seasons, Penn State has had equal or more talent. I think last year, given the equity of everything overall, from Manny Diaz and that defense to a top 10 pick at left tackle, Penn State was the better team from a talent perspective last year overall. And they couldn't get it done last year. They couldn't get it done this year when they were in a comparable situation from a talent perspective and from an ability perspective. There were about 4 opportunities to throw the ball deep in this game. Ohio State missed 2 of them, but there were 4 opportunities that were wide open. They hit a couple. The Egbuka touchdown again. I don't know. Time and time again. I guess because the players change. But when you hide a receiver at tight end, they're throwing him the football. Going all the way back to Ryan Day in 2020. I have visions of Brandon Smith trying to cover Garrett Wilson. And it's the same play. It's the same play. Just different versions of the same play over and over and over and over again. And somehow it works. On that play, Zakee Wheatley was supposed to cover in a match situation that deep crosser. It's cover 3. And they took a receiver deep. And then you have another player following underneath. Penn State runs these plays. These are not necessarily complicated plays. But overall, the Penn State defense held Ohio State to 20 points. 20-13 is the final score with, again, one of those touchdowns from Penn State coming from the defense. Get to all this. Yay, almost winning is our tradition. Yeah. Anything other than swearing is on the table. I don't shout, be angry. I'll give you some analysis, but we'll just flip in and flip out between those things. Andy Kotelnicki's play calling was bad inside the 5. That said, OSU's talent started putting it together. Still, playmakers at wide receiver weren't up to the task. One of the worst things, I watched the broadcast here from my studio. One of the worst things that Joel Klatt said was he talked to the officiants. What is this, a wedding? The officials before the game, and they said they're going to let him play. And the minute he said that, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a bad game because I'll tell you this, things that we don't talk about during the week, they were telling the wide receivers, hey, this is how they grab. This is how they play defense. They're going to do this to you, so this is how you beat it. There was no ambiguity about what was going to come in to this game on how Penn State's wide receivers were going to be played, and they didn't make Ohio State's defensive backs pay for it. If you play press, grabby man coverage, and you're a fast, athletic wide receiver, you need to be able to break that and get open deep. I was not a fan of the opportunities that the offense had. The offense came out tight. And I mean that tactically. Chips on every play. Trying to help the tackles as much as possible. At one point, they put Anthony Donko back in the game, I think in the second quarter, and he played the rest of the game. Actually played pretty well. I thought the offensive line played pretty well overall. There was that 2-play sequence with back-to-back sacks. But if you are throwing to 3 wide receivers in a 7 defensive back environment, and they're predicting where your routes are going, of course nobody's going to get open. Ohio State played good defense, but Penn State having to keep those guys into chip in the first half led to a lot of plays where Allar's looking into a secondary where there are no options from a zone perspective. And then from a receiver perspective, if you have inside leverage and you're supposed to be running an out route and Liam Clifford can't get off of the press jam from the slot safety, then you're not going to win that game. And that's, kind of the way it played out for the wide receivers. So yes, Penn State's wide receivers still are not up to the task. And in the second half, I still am trying to piece that together. If you want to do the autopsy with me tomorrow, we'll be doing the film study If you want to burn it and bury it and move on, I don't blame you with that either. So Ryan, I agree that the play calling, I think, was hamstrung initially because they can't run up the middle. Called that coming into the game. So they tried to run to the outside, and that defense flows. That's the whole point of that defense, is to flow to the football. So that leaves you with play actions and throwing the ball down the field, challenging them down the field, and they just never did that. KJ Johnson says red zone offense was awful, and the last drive to run off clock was phenomenal domination by Ohio State. Tough afternoon all around. Yeah, the time of possession, blindingly. What? Okay, I'm sorry. I just saw the final time of possession, 31 minutes for Ohio State. Feels like the Penn State defense was on the field forever because those drives were so long. You've got, 3 drives back to back to back of 3 minutes and 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes, 4 minutes. Then in the second half, a 47-yard play drive, and then, of course, 12 and 11 plays to end the game for Ohio State. Essentially, they held the ball for the entire fourth quarter with the lead. That is impotence at its best. And that's very, I don't know how you are supposed to have a defensive player of the game here on the Labatt postgame show. By the way, I'm sorry. This is the Labatt postgame show. There's a whole lot of stuff that's supposed to happen, all the formatics of this from that side of things. The Labatt postgame show, you might need a couple of those here to get you going in the postgame show. Really crank up the anger. Whatever happened to Tyler Warren direct snap, jump over the line? Yes, Brett. Yes. Where was that at the goal line? Why was Drew Allar on? If you're determined to run the ball 3 straight times with no receivers on the field and an offensive lineman running motion, why is Allar? Why are you wasting an offensive skill player handing the ball off? They direct snap to Katron Allen multiple times in this game, even if it isn't Tyler Warren. Put Tyler Warren at quarterback and do the fake snap thing, and then have him lead block, have him jump over the pile, clear it, and then I don't know. There's 1,000 different ways. Here's the thing. I don't even think that this is like Monday morning quarterbacking, armchair quarterbacking. We're all coming to this same conclusion. That was as tight, as butthole puckered of a sequence as you can have from the Penn State offense. I don't know how the communication went down on that and how that was what it was, but it was what it was. Michael McCullen says, most exciting part of the game: 1, Fox broadcasters; 2, copious political commercials; 3, Penn State offensive offense. Yeah. I like that rundown. Yeah, everything everyone loves. It was a noon kick on a broadcast station that everyone resents for the noon kick. We're 3 days away from an election that is super contentious. We're not talking about that. If we do that in the chat, I'm just going to end the show, just so you know. And then the offensive was just predictably bad in this game. Hard to get points when receivers and tight ends are being held every single play, literally every play. And Dan, how do you call that? How do you call a game where they are holding on all of these plays? One of the things we said, I made the comment coming into this week on the Blue White Illustrated message board, and I don't know how to do this. I'm supposed to do this. Subscribe to Blue White Illustrated for 50% off. We're still running that now. Shout more. Be angry with people that feel the same way that you do. Use Join 50. Yeah. How do you call this? How do you force them to call pass interference when those refs just are not inclined to do so? And Drew Allar doesn't throw to contested catch situations very often. He always tries to find the open receiver, and sometimes there aren't open receivers. So that was a concern coming into this game. You can't forcibly predict those opportunities. And so if you're and if they're doing it on every single play, you can't call it on every single play. I guess you could if you wanted to, but people would resent that as much as Penn State fans are unhappy about that. But officiating is 1/8 of the situation here. The real problem is the Penn State offense did not evolve the style of the game plan. Running on first down cropped up again in this game. Greg Fischel is back. He says, you can't tell me our offensive called those plays at the... Here we go. James Franklin meddling. Here's the thing. Like, normally I would roll my eyes and say, like, James Franklin doesn't call plays. I don't care. Like, at this point, if you want to say that, I don't have any evidence to the contrary, because James Franklin does say, I remind my play callers, hey, let's do this. Hey, let's do that. Doesn't call the plays, but he does nudge them where he wants them. And if you're like, hey, run it at the goal line. If he's saying that to Andy Kotelnicki and Kotelnicki's calling the plays, like, it's kind of like who's holding the mouse and doing the clicking. So sure, like let's put that on the table, because I have seen a lot of dramatic play calling from Andy Kotelnicki, and then that was the opposite of that. I'm trying to get the way things ended there. It was predictable, but you can't officially say it's a loss in those situations until it's a loss. So sorry, I was just putting out the tweet. Everyone is in the same boat here. The Wildcat at the goal line. I'm glad that I'm not the only person here that's focusing on that. Elliott Washington ends up one-on-one with Jeremiah Smith. Little things killed us. Yeah, 3rd and 9. That's another huge situation that we saw last week against Wisconsin. Elliott Washington one-on-one playing an out route in a obvious passing situation against one of the top receivers in college football, predictably did not go Penn State's way. So do you want to get into the tactics here? Do you want to get into any of those things? Because one thing I've got to do here is we've got to break from this, and I'm going to get back to your comments. And I promise, I don't know if you're yelling in the chat, if you're not yelling in the chat, if anyone's there. I think people are there based on the number of people that are here in the game or on the live view. But we do have to get to our defensive player of the game. The defensive player of the game brought to you by State College criminal defense attorney Matt McClanahan of McClanahan Law Firm. Matt McClanahan, he's a crazy Penn State fan. He texts me his predictions before every game. I won't, in deference to him, because I like Matt, I'm not going to tell you what his score was or what his prediction was. He did, by the way, I have to say, he did predict a defensive score. So good for him. But he also predicted a lot more points. And if you want to talk shop with him, if you want to talk ball, for information, mattmlaw.com. You guys can complain about this or can complain about James Franklin or whatever. Or if you need any legal defense, like obviously give him a call. Hopefully you don't. Mike Scantana hasn't been back in a while. Here he is. He says, we had nothing to lose and our offense took no chances. Say you want T, Frank, but the refs affected the game to the tune of 14 points. I'm done. Yes. So don't get me wrong. The refs were a big part of this game for sure. There were a lot of things. I disagree. I thought that Trey Wallace in that close situation, when you called it a catch on the field on that dig route for the second down conversion that ultimately led to a 3-and-out, when you call it a catch on the field and he maintains some version of possession as it goes to the ground and you don't have a clear look, then I don't know how you overturn that. And then, yeah, I disagree. If you're going to grab guys, go to the Blue White Illustrated .com, go to the live in-game thread. I was putting up stills of all the times they were getting held, pointing to them. But again, the officials have the deference to call or not call that. And that's just my point, is you can't force them to do so. And I don't blame you for being done. Listen, I've told you before, I don't root. I know that bothers some people. I'm here to watch good football. I want to see you guys happy. I don't want to be the one that you shoot. I don't like being the messenger that is shot. So, yeah, I'm going to just get out of the way. Unlike James Franklin, I can't leave. I'm stuck here. I'm on camera. I'm tied in with my headphones. I'm not going anywhere. So we can have a conversation about the game. This is the Labatt postgame show. And give me 1 second, because I'm going to do something that I don't normally do, which is to be super unprofessional. I hope I'm not. Unprofessional all the time. I got to pull up my read. When it's time to kick back or pull your hair out, grab a Pilsner that's as pristine as Happy Valley itself. If there was one undefeated person here or thing here from this game, it was Happy Valley itself. It was beautiful outside. It is beautiful outside. Perfect, sunny, chill, crisp day. The leaves are almost gone, but they're still hanging on. Rusty look outside. If you want to go just like, I don't know, run up Mount Nittany and shout to the heavens, grab a Labatt and head on up. Labatt Light delivers an unmatched taste that goes down smooth every time, whether you're tailgating or at the BWI tailgate, which is lightly sponsored by Labatt. They are a part of the Blue White Illustrated tailgate. Always love having those guys. 107,000 your closest friends, or today 111,000 of your angriest friends. Watching from the couch, maybe you're like me, you're here in your studio. grab a Labatt. And, of course, bleed blue and white. Drink blue and light. Find Labatt products at Beverage Express, 1021 Rittner Highway, Carlisle. Please drink responsibly. Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. As a almost Canadian myself, growing up near Erie, love Labatt. Hometown favorite for me. So Mini Moon, sorry, I've got to get through a lot of these. I was considering, I thought there'd be way more burn it all down comments. Mini Moon says, I've watched Penn State for 23 years now. I'm done until James Franklin is gone. Same stuff every year. And it all comes down to coaching. Just signing off now. Say, appreciate what all you all do for Penn State. Yeah. I don't have a retort. I don't want to have a retort. In these situations, in these games, like, Penn State was the higher ranked team. They were not the team that was the favorite, but they were the higher ranked team at home in a game that was truly a 50-50 game. And they came up so small. Here's the deal. I didn't want, and this is just a tiny tangent here. I am at the mercy of what's available on the internet. And a lot of times the images you use, the thumbnails I make, are supposed to say something about this game and about this show and about what we're going to talk about. Drew Allar was great. I have, at this point, I do have to go watch it back. I saw a lot of the coverages from the zone coverages were good. The man coverages were sticky. Drew Allar legitimately had nowhere to throw the football. For a dude who's coming in with a bum knee to run like that and put his body on the line and to play the way he did, no, I'm impressed with the job he did. He threw some really good balls into tight coverage. He gave his team a chance when he had a chance, but he didn't have a chance to do a whole lot in this game. He had a lot of three-man routes thrown into no double coverages. He's trying to be careful with the football. Finally, he had to let it rip to Tyler Warren in contested catch situation. Tyler Warren, that sequence almost saved everything. I had it typed out like, hey, come back, kids. There's another graphic I had just in case they won. And of course, I typed out the negative article before I typed out the positive article because I'm with you guys. I thought there would be something in this game from the Penn State offense that was different. And really, there wasn't. And I'm not saying that some of the play calls, here's another thing we got to talk about. Some of the play calls were going to work. There was a run where it was a direct snap to Katron Allen inside. It was in the first field goal attempt in the game where you had Tyler Warren leading and Ohio State had their edge rushers or their linebackers blitzing over the tackles or mugged over the tackles with nobody in the A gaps. If the offensive line blocked, that was a touchdown. But both of the players on the right side of the line, Nolan Rucci and Sal Wormley, couldn't hold their guys outside. So it was a 2-yard gain. There were a lot of plays that almost worked. Schematically, Andy Kotelnicki called some of the right plays. I keep going back to these things are emotionally burned in your brain of oh, wow, that was there. Liam Clifford didn't get open on his out route on 3rd and long, and so Allar didn't have anywhere to throw the football. Luke Reynolds didn't get his head around in time because he was fighting with a defensive back where he couldn't turn around after that coverage on the front side of the read was all over. Penn State just had all these opportunities from a schematic sense. They didn't have a lot of 3rd and longs. When they did have 3rd and longs, there was no shot. And on the flip side, the athletes from the other side, from Ohio State, they put Penn State in a lot of conflict. Oh yeah, I was supposed to pick a defensive player of the game. I don't have anybody. Here's the thing. The guy that comes to mind is Dom DeLuca, who got trucked at the end of the game that allowed a first down. But he came into the game, and I thought he was really good. Abdul Carter, I guess, let's call it Abdul Carter. 2 sacks in the game. There were some plays in coverage where he wasn't as good, but 4 tackles. He was a good player in this football game. He was a key player on defense that helped keep this thing to 20 points. I guess you could say AJ Harris with the interception. Was it AJ Harris? For some reason, Zion Tracy. Zion Tracy with the interception. Gordy Newsome says there was some calls not going in Penn State's way in the red zone. Offense wasn't good. Why not play action on first down after the big run? Yeah, I agree with everything other than the punctuation here, which I can't read live. The text messages, if I'm reading them on my phone, that's great. I can decipher it when I'm reading in my head, reading out loud. Gordy, I'm just teasing you. Yeah, it's that fourth down sequence. I'm glad that we're all like fixated on that because that was the ball game right there. No wide receivers open on all the replays. Finally got a 5-star QB. He has nowhere to go with the football. Yeah, sums it up. You guys are doing awesome analysis of this game. Ohio State gave the opportunity to tie the game, and Penn State gave a masterclass in losing the game. I guess we wanted to buy by missing the Big Ten championship game. Patrick Kuhn here. He gets it. They're still in the race for a postseason berth. Do you care? Do you want me to go down that scenario? They went out there 11-1, and is 11-1 this year the new 10-2? Or do you still believe they're going to end up 10-2? Flame through the chat, however you think. Albany says, really love this show, T. Frank. After today, I always put 1 in the L column for Penn State. T. Frank, can Penn State really beat Ohio State at least every other year? No. I picked them to win partly because, like I said, I like watching good football. I wanted a different outcome, just like you. I'm not saying I was trying to manifest it, but I thought all things being equal, Penn State is the better quarterback. He was healthy. Everything I thought they needed in this game to be successful, they got. They got pass protection, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter because Ohio State, they were better. Their defensive coverage scheme is better. And here's the thing, from what I saw on film, and this is what I tried to say late in the week on Friday after watching that Oregon game, Oregon's got some of the fastest receivers in the country, and they threw the ball deep. And if you're going to run by those guys, the best way to not let them get hands on you is to run away from them. Amari Evans couldn't run away from anybody. Trey Wallace didn't run away from anybody. Tyler Warren didn't run away from anybody other than on that QB fake pass where he got 35 yards. So Penn State's wide receivers were ill-equipped for this game because they're always ill-equipped for this game. It's very frustrating when I thought they could eke out enough plays, but they didn't attack deep. They didn't flood the deep part of the zones against this team because they were more afraid of that pass rush than they were of losing the game from sacks. If you want my honest assessment of what the game plan was and the critical flaw in it, they were afraid to lose, so they played small ball in a lot of these situations. They tried to manufacture the run game. I haven't even looked at any of the stats. I don't know what the yards per carry was. 3.8 yards per carry, 32 carries. They tried to force the run game. Drew Allar was 60% for 146 yards. That's not enough. They needed to throw for 200 yards in this game. They needed to do some of those explosive things, and they didn't. 40 carries for 176 yards and no touchdowns, but 4.4 yards per carry from the Ohio State rushing game. There were not a ton of explosive plays. 22 yards was the longest run of the game, but they ran behind the right side of the line. The rebuilt offensive line couldn't run to the left. They didn't, I promise you, there's some good runs in there. But if you look, the overwhelming number of these runs went to the right or they went outside the tackle. On both directions. Neither team could run between the tackles in this game until the Penn State defense was gassed because what was the number of plays? What was the total number of plays in this game? 64 plays for Ohio State. In modern football, I'm used to 76 at this point because they run so many plays. But yeah, 64 plays. Penn State had 10 fewer plays. They were just not on the field enough, and they were on the field in spurts. That fourth quarter, they were totally gassed. But they were able to keep them, in the game long enough for the Penn State offense to finally try and score a touchdown, and they didn't. The undisciplined penalties don't happen with Joe Paterno. It makes me wonder what James Franklin preaches at practice. This is getting old, in the name on the front, not on the back, right? Thanks, T. Frank. Yeah. Penn State, James Franklin tries to preach 1-0. James Franklin tries to preach discipline and treating every game as if they're all the same. Did you see Drew Allar out there celebrating first downs? Did you see Elliott Washington walking over and putting his crotch in the receiver's face on that third down that he got a penalty for? Jalen Reed got another post-touchdown penalty. They did not play disciplined. And I don't care. The offsides one, that is Abdul Carter trying to time the snap. I don't care about that one. But those penalties matter. Yeah, some of them didn't hurt you, But this is an emotional team that clearly wanted this game, and they don't play in this situation like it's just another game. They don't do that. They want to, but they don't do that. And yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you if Joe Pa would or wouldn't. I don't know. Fleming wasn't enough in the portal. That's on Franklin. I mean, they had opportunities at other receivers the last couple of years, and they didn't get those guys in the portal. Yeah, it's tough. This offense has built an identity around tight ends. Yeah. When I talk on the BWI Live show about like the football theory of are tight ends explosive enough to win you games, almost when you have one of the best ones you've ever had in Tyler Warren. But again, it's almost good enough. It's not good enough. The uncalled defensive pass interference was beyond letting them play. Guys, what we saw on the fumble. Here's one. Carl says, tell me what you saw on the fumble. I'm assuming you're talking about the Quinshaw Junkins one, not the Will Howard one. The Will Howard one was a fumble. I called that one live because the way the ball came out of his hands, it went forward. Just odds are it went out of the back of the end zone. That was not a fumble on Junkins. He didn't hold on to the ball long enough for that to be a fumble. I know that sucks, but that is what it is. Love the beginning. True Challenge showed up at the at the end. Yep. Yeah. I thought early in the game, Penn State got a 10-point lead. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to play with house money, and they just didn't. There's a lot of these. There's a lot of these in the chat that are very similar. I want to make sure that I don't go by any of these that are good, but I do want to talk about some of the other stuff and not just the vent sesh, because the podcast audience doesn't get to vent. And I'm just reading your comments today. And as much as that is this show, every time after one of these losses, that is this show, I do want to get into some of the analysis here of the defense and what happened. Paul Gordon says, time we talked about James Franklin losing his job for real. The fact is 30 coaches could come in here and win 9 games and lose 2 big ones every year, 3-18 against top 10 teams, all of the same stuff. If I'm Allar, I leave. I think Allar should leave anyway because he's a good enough quarterback to go to the NFL draft, personally. I'm sure this game is going to be held against him in that situation, but if you're not a QB wins quarterback guy, especially, and somehow NFL teams are still QB win quarterback guys, Drew Allar's been great. I think he's been very good. My problems are like, this is going to be a little thing, but it is the little things. The last 2 seasons, Penn State's center has not been as good as the rest of the offensive linemen on the field. And when you run zone and you need to reach block or you need to seal off defensive tackles, and 58 is putting Nick Dawkins into the backfield. There's one play. Again, I throw up these cut-ups during the live game analysis where Bo Prabula kept the ball and he decided to run the ball himself, right? There was no running play. If he gave the ball to Katron Allen, there was no running play there. If he kept the ball, there was no running play there. If he pitched the ball, I think it may have been to Julian Fleming. There was no play there. Ohio State had it sniffed out. So the run game and being able to run between the tackles, as much as Ohio State couldn't for most of the game until the end, Penn State had no shot at running the ball between the tackles. They had to manufacture the run game biting around the edges, and somehow, well, I guess I know how. It was Tyler Warren getting 33 yards. They got him over 100 yards on the game. Everybody else was fairly ineffective. And the offense, if you're not going to stretch the field vertically, and you have given the defense that decision, and by stretching the field vertically, I don't mean running one player deep. I'm talking running 3 players into zone coverages to pull them open to find receivers either underneath, in between the coverages, or for those explosive plays. And yeah, JW here says 1 to 2 explosive plays. It's the same every year. They just can't seem to throw on this team. And Jim Knowles is a very good defensive coordinator, and he's taken those things away from them. But that's where you've got to force the issue. And they just didn't force the issue enough in this game. Yeah. A lot of people are saying the same stuff here in the chat. I'm completely vindicated, says Scott Wilson. He is vindicated. Last week, Jalen Reed gave the football to his mom. This week, his helmet. Next week, Elliot Washington decides to. Yes, Scott. Yeah. You are vindicated. That's exactly right. You were right about that last week. You got to play with less emotion, or more emotion, or however you want to do that. Trust the Vibe says wideouts don't even get targets. Watch the All 22 weekly. They're getting open. They are, and you're right. There is an absence of that. That is part of the decision making of the offensive structure, getting the ball to Tyler Warren, and also getting the ball to your favorite target, Tyler Warren and Drew Allar. There's a connection there. Against Wisconsin, yes, you can say Amari Evans on the backside of a play was open for a touchdown. Absolutely. Allar's going through his progressions. He doesn't, to my understanding, doesn't have latitude to just check matchups. The NFL, you check matchups. College football, you play progression. 1, 2, 3, check down. That's another thing we haven't talked about today. The check down game. Great that Nick Singleton got 6 catches for 54 yards, but your number 1 receiver is a running back check down. Your number 2 receiver is a tight end, and he got explosive plays because of the design of the offense, not because he was able to get as many one explosive play there. The defense. They were better in the second half, but what Ohio State did, and I already talked about it a little bit here on the show early, but when you play as much man coverage as Penn State does, Ohio State came out with a great game plan. Rub routes, but not just the standard interference plays. And that's how Penn State got their first touchdown, is they gave something Ohio State wasn't expecting early in the game. But Ohio State had more tricks in their bag of how to get those athletes into space. You run underneath the coverage. 1 point, Zion Tracy runs into Tony Rojas. That's just interference. That's not even a rub route. That's just sending the route through a congested part of the field to predict that those things are going to happen. And those details absolutely matter. Somebody said in the chat, details matter. Those are the details to me that matter, that I was expecting a better job from the Penn State defense on those details, because there's a couple plays where you're running into somebody early or you're bubbling around somebody. That part has happened all year long. But when you have as much speed as Ohio State does, now it matters. Every yard of separation matters. And you saw the areas where Penn State's defense was just a little bit behind from that talent perspective. But again, I can't sit here and blame them when they gave up 20 points to that team. Part of that is the way Ohio State plays. They decided to run the ball 40 times. So if Ohio State decides to throw the ball more often, maybe they get more sacks, but also maybe they get more opportunities and more touchdowns. They throw half as many deep passes as they did last year or years before under Ryan Day. How are we doing? This is a BWI Live Postgame show. James Franklin's going to talk. I doubt we'll get any sort of insight into some of these situations. I don't think we're going to see, I don't want to say accountability, but I don't think we're going to get an answer as to, some of these situations. I hope somebody asks him about that third down sequence in the end of the game where they were not able to score with the game on the line. Let me look at my notes. Just been kind of going hot from the hip so far for 38 minutes. I just looked up and oh my goodness, you guys kept this show going with what you got going. So I appreciate you guys. That's to me the biggest thing, coming back to not throwing the ball deep. So Paul says, how can anyone defend this? James Franklin at Penn State. And then he gives all of the stats, right? I'm not mad. I'm fed up. We want a national championship. We need change. Thoughts? I don't have a better answer, Paul. I don't have an answer for you. Normally, I would say that the other team is more talented. And there are aspects of this defense or of this Penn State team this year that are as talented as Ohio State. It came down to athletes in space, and Ohio State has more athletes. But they always have more athletes. Again, you need to rise above those things and create the change. I can't believe the Penn State defense gave up as many yards on the ground as they did. I did not believe that was going to happen. And again, you heard Gus Johnson just falling over himself, being so congratulatory to the Ohio State offensive line. And you know what? They won. They salted the game away with 5 minutes left. They deserve that at this point. But you look at the changes they made, it just stopped the blood flow. Like, it just stemmed the bleeding. They ran to the right all game, and that side of the line had not been as effective. Now, granted, they had been averaging 6.5 yards a carry to the right, But I figured Penn State's defense would be able to do better than that, and they did worse than that. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm not defending it. I don't have a defense for it. And I think at this point, yeah, until Penn State gets better explosive receivers, until they're able to generate these plays that match the opponent, they're not going to win because they don't seem to have another way of winning other than being more talented than Ohio State. There's not something that they can manufacture to generate that. They almost did. They almost tied it up, and then they didn't. Just like in 2019, 2017, the Lamont Wade game when it was at Ohio State, and I think Will Levis came into the game. It might have been 2018. I have a terrible memory. People are great about that stuff. But it was that game at Ohio State where Penn State held that offense, which had, all kinds of talent, to almost won the game. And then Sean Clifford got injured, and all of a sudden Penn State loses that one, which was close. They've had great efforts. They've had great opportunities, and they have come up short every single time. And this is where I'm not a good enough football analyst to tell you other than I don't think that they attack deep enough on offense. Nate Bauer said on Tuesday, they need to be willing to play like they're going to lose by 30. And they didn't do that. That was absolutely the opposite of what they did. And he was right about that. Because they played to chip, to throw underneath, catch and run, and against this zone defense or against these, third and long, now you're throwing into man coverage. There just wasn't anything there. Chuck says, I'd be worried Penn State doesn't lose another game. Bad record of carrying the loss into the next game. Washington and the whiteout. You're going to watch them tonight, and everything is going to look like the boogeyman for sure. So it's going to be very interesting how a lot of this stuff plays out. Is there anything from the game we didn't touch on other than fire James Franklin? Because yeah, sure, we can have that conversation now. I know a lot of you have thought that since 2017, 2018, the changes that have been made are still being implemented. I'm not saying, it's still early in this process. But they had all the ingredients they needed. They had a good quarterback. They had the better quarterback. And that sounds disrespectful because Will Howard played a very good game. He missed on one deep ball and the receiver missed on the other deep ball. Other than that, I thought he played a great game. He did everything he needed to do to win that game. He was the better quarterback today. They had the more talented quarterback. Penn State did. A guy who's going to play on Sunday and I think is going to be a good starter in the NFL if he continues to play and play well. He's got to learn to throw the ball and take more chances. He's learning that. That's happening. They have a good defense. They didn't have all their defensive pieces, but I don't think Dennis Sutton specifically materially affects that game in a different way. Maybe they play run defense a little bit better, but the defensive tackles, here's the thing. We didn't talk about Zane Durant. We didn't talk about any of the guys in the middle because they didn't really run through the middle of this defense. They were able to find a way to run around the edges of the Penn State defense. So they did things to scheme and put their athletes in a better position to succeed. And Penn State did the opposite of that. They put their defense, their offensive players in a box, and then they asked those guys later to win. I hate this because there's going to be things that I watch tomorrow watching the film that I'm like, okay, this would have worked, but X happened. And if you want to join me on that journey of pain, so subscribe to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com for 50% off. I'll throw this up again. It feels very hollow. Big game that ended up with 13 points and 3 offensive points. Jeez, that's bad. Promo code JOIN50. Hope you're having fun. There are more mad comments. I haven't seen any unhinged comments. Last year when this happened, Crypto Ducat, where are you at, my guy? I was actually kind of counting on that. Let's see. Bro Loaf. He says Will Howard is a slightly better quarterback than Kyle McCord. Lost to both of them. That's the part that's tough. We make these, I don't want to say move the goalposts, but there are things that Ohio State has. Somebody said earlier in the chat, $30 million buys you better players. Sure, Caleb Downs was excellent, and he was a big difference in this game. Quinshon Judkins was a very good football player and was excellent in this game. It doesn't buy you everything, though. Penn State is not. Penn State can't cry poor anymore in the NIL sphere. They are behind. They have been behind. But overcoming adversity is a thing. You know, there have been teams that have been less talented than Ohio State that have beaten Ohio State. And it was clear that Penn State really, 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 really wanted this game. And some of the mistakes they made, mental and physical, created a situation where they lost that game. There was a couple of players. I don't like singling these players out. Zakee Wheatley struggled in this game. His run defense, they tried to play Jalen Reed closer to the line of scrimmage. They tried to invert and put Cam Miller deep at free safety. And when you put Jalen Reed at that boundary safety position, he's got to play like Jalen Reed, and he's got to play like KJ Winston. And that's just not his natural position. He's a free safety. He's a guy that's not used to coming down and filling in the run game. He does it better in space. But at that point, you're doing things now out of character, and they've had time to practice it. Again, 1 second. Problem of doing this solo is if I have anything in my throat, I can't just stop talking and let somebody else talk. They had enough time to practice this. They had enough time to adjust this defense to have it ready to go. And I don't know how you expect them to give up no points, but those are where those those are where those points came up. Michael Fox says, T. Frank, I thought the kicker played well. Right? Remember at the beginning of the season, we're like, you know what? Kicker's going to cost them a game. That did not happen. Okay, here we go. We got the Tony Rojas conversation. T. Frank, Rojas is not good. Come off it already. I didn't mention Tony Rojas, did I? He didn't play well. Here's the thing. I don't even know if he played well because they didn't run the ball in between the tackles. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to find out if that's right. But he did not play well from the one or two plays that I saw. And then, Kobe King missed a tackle on Quinshon Judkins in open space. Somebody got taken for a ride. I saw Zane Durant get pushed off the spot a couple of times. So yeah, there were Penn State got pushed around a little bit in this game, aside from the schematic issues. Here we go. Fire Franklin. Somebody just says it out loud. Fire Franklin. There we go. Random Duke says, Patrick Kraft, what's it going to take, man? We waiting. I don't know. So let's talk about the path forward. Penn State's schedule down the stretch. We got a couple minutes left here on the show. I know that's not, anyone is not interested in that, but things aren't over. The story is not over yet. This team can still rebound with Washington, at Purdue, at Minnesota, and then home against Maryland. Minnesota, from what I saw early in the year, they can throw the football a little bit better, but that's a team that's built off the run. Penn State should be able to stop the run, although I thought that today. That might not happen. That game, I think, is a little bit different. Purdue, I haven't watched a whole lot of Washington. And then, of course, Maryland has got a quarterback that can throw the football. They can put up points and score if you have this similar situation where Penn State's defense in the secondary plays poorly against a good quarterback and great receivers. So Penn State should be favored in all these games. They should win all of these games. This first loss, if you talk to Ohio State after that game against Oregon, they would have said the season's not over. Penn State's going to be 5th, 6th, maybe, in the latest rankings. I don't know how the rest of today played out or is playing out, but this is a situation where Penn State is going to most likely make the playoff. I don't say they punched their ticket against USC, but getting past that game and winning that game set up the opportunity to lose this one. And Michigan's not on the schedule. I don't know if Michigan would have been the same test that they have been previously. But Penn State has an opportunity to sit around during the college football playoff committee discussions and say, hey, we're one of the 12 best teams. We lost to one of the best teams in the country by 7 points. And it was a tough physical game. They're going to make the playoff, but somebody in the chat already, and it was probably Mac the Mustard Man saying they're going to, or AG Duke said they're going to get smacked in the first round of the playoff. It depends on the draw. For sure, it depends on the draw, but we'll find out. Talk That Trey says, why do I always choke with the biggest game? Playing tight. This was a tight performance. Players were aggressive downhill, trying to stop the run and not playing like it was another game. They were trying to create stops, explosive plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage because they wanted to pound. They wanted to make a statement against Ohio State. I did not see a team that played like this was another game. So when you do that, talk that race. And you give the opportunity for some of those play action passes and you give up things they haven't given up all year. To me, that does go back to this is a team that wants it too much in this situation and is something that is they're not playing to that elevated level of great. Wow, I hate using I hate using those terms that we've used for a decade at this point. Brett asks, how can we be so close to elite and so far from it? Why are we now running outside the tackles with Allen and inside with Singleton? If you watched Caleb Downs track down Nick Singleton, he's not explosive right now. He's still fast because he's Nick Singleton. But his ability to cut and be dynamic in space, by the way, Kaytron Allen also ran between the tackles as well. I mean, that was the whole third down, fourth down situation sequence there at the end of the game. Singleton doesn't have that burst to the outside right now. If this were week one, he outraces Caleb Downs and he turns the corner, and that is a 12-yard run minimum. The blocking was there. In that particular situation, Downs was fast enough. He caught the ankle, and Singleton fell forward. You also didn't see Nick a whole lot at the end of the game. Whatever happened to him against Illinois, he's playing through it, but he's not playing well through it because Nick's game is built on explosiveness, power, speed, all that stuff. When you've got an injury to your lower half and you don't have that, you can't explode the same way. So to me, that's a big conversation about this game that we didn't really have because I was saying the running game is not going to be effective. So I just kind of put it to the side. Like, okay, I know that that's not going to be effective. Part of the reason it's not going to be effective is because they can't run between the tackles against this particular team because that defensive line is a good overall front seven. And because Nick isn't explosive. So your number one explosive player isn't explosive right now on your offense. Your number two explosive player is a tight end. And if he runs a 4.6 at 260, that's great. And then your number one explosive receiver, I don't say he's a gadget player, but he is not a complete number one wide receiver. They have not gone to him. Did he get any targets in this game? He didn't catch a football. I don't think he was targeted in this game because he runs clear out routes. And if you're not going to throw deep in that game, if the game plan is not to stretch the team vertically, then he's not going to be involved in the game. So your elite players are either hurt, a tight end, or not elite. And it comes down to Trey Wallace playing contested catch, feisty football. He did that. He did his job when he was throwing the football, other than that one play where he gave the other team the football on that interception. So they didn't play an elite game from a discipline perspective, and they did not have the overall explosive talent in the game. I thought they'd find a way to manufacture more. And to me, that's a part of the conversation. Drew has looked bad against Ohio State the last 2 years. There's no way our receivers and Warren aren't open on all these design throws. He plays scared. I disagree, Joseph. I will defer to you that I don't know for certain, but I watched every single play from the offense in the first half back at halftime. I watched the entire third quarter back at halftime. I just haven't watched that final drive all the way through, but that final drive was one throw to Tyler Warren and one run by Tyler Warren. So, yeah, I think that if you want him to throw into triple coverage, okay. I don't know if you're late here, Joseph, but that was the conversation I was having, is that those receivers, they were flooding the zones where they were predicting where the receivers were going to be. They were flooding those zones with bodies, and it didn't matter what the route combination was. They were running into a player. And Allar, if you want to say he did not hold on to the football till the very last second in the pocket, like maybe offensively long or irresponsibly long, then okay, maybe he's not Caleb Williams to extend the play and broken plays like that. But playing within the structure of the offense, if the receivers aren't getting open, then I don't know what you want the quarterback to do. But Joseph, if you want him to throw more contested catches, I get it. I think that way, if you want to lay criticism in the first half, it's that, okay, throw it anyway. Liam Clifford isn't open. He tried that early in the game. They didn't give him the call. And so he tried to adjust and he tried to find the open receivers, and there weren't open receivers. When you leave a bunch of guys in to chip and to block and to extra pass protectors, then you don't get 5 players in the route. But yeah, we're going to go and we're going to check that out tomorrow at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. I'm just numb to lose in this fashion to Ohio State, says Brandy Taylor. Here's the thing. I was thinking about this, and I think I've said this already. The Ohio State offensive line played well, but they protected that unit, especially that left side. Penn State did not play the game to expose the weaknesses. And I'm shocked by that. And Ohio State gets to talk that talk, right? I'm sure I haven't been, there's 800 people in the chat. I'm trying to do the show. I'm sure there's Ohio State fans in here doing all that they can to make this not fun for you guys, which is already not fun. But they just get to talk because, yeah, you saw that at the end of the game, mocking Penn State celebrations because, once again, Penn State played feisty. They got emotional. They started doing the same thing during the game. And then at the end of the game, Ohio State gets the last laugh. That sucks. That sucks, man. I don't know. Like, I'm out of words. I probably was out of words 30 minutes ago. I just want to be here to help you through this. If you're a Penn State fan, I know these feelings. I am a football fan. This sucks. Tom Brady for 20 years ruined my life. And then at the very end, we got a quarterback. The Bills got a quarterback. They got Josh Allen. You know what never happened? Josh Allen never beat Tom Brady. That just into eternity. Tom Brady owns the Buffalo Bills. There's nothing you can do about it. It's written in stone. And this is good. I live with that every day. He's on TV once a week. That's never going away. Drew Allar, if he goes pro after this year, never beat Ohio State. That's forever. We were talking on the Tailgate Show about legacy, a legacy game. The opportunity was there for this to be a legacy game, and they just couldn't do it. And that sucks. If you're a fan, that sucks. If you're a player, that sucks even more. So, yeah, I don't know how to make you feel better about it. I remember starting my career, I tried to make you feel better about it. I tried to be here and be like, listen, 5 or 6 different things happen, and this is the tech. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happened during the game. Ray comes in and says that 1st and goal in 79 against Bama, the 93 against Michigan, and now 2024 against Ohio State will now be remembered in the annals of sadness. I'm normally a Fire Franklin guy, but they fought the refs all day. Yeah, he summed it up perfectly right there. It's in the annals of sadness, which sounds like something different, which also probably is what it feels like too. So yeah, let's find out in the offseason what Penn State can do. At least in the NFL, what you have is the draft. You have the draft to make you feel better. Like, you know what? We're going to get the player. Recruiting is one thing. Penn State got a commitment from Matt Sieg, a safety, 4-star player in Pennsylvania for the class of 2026 before the show. We'll talk about that later this week. And I'm sure that the number one comment will be, doesn't matter. Can't beat Ohio State. Not a 5-star. And at a certain point, that is the evidence that's mounting. And it doesn't matter how much nerd nuance I bring to you. Penn State just can't beat Ohio State. And that is the note we're going to leave this on. You can join us for more of our post-game comment. We've got instant analysis coming up from the field. We've got Drew Allar's press conference. We've got James Franklin's press conference. All of that coming up next on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. Feel free to leave your comments there too. This doesn't have to end. You don't have to just throw them in here and go on your merry way. You can also use the comment section on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. Just please, for my sanity, don't swear. Don't do anything untoward. Let's just keep it civil and direct your hate in a respectable way, as good football fans do, towards the people that you think have wronged you, instead of, doing things that I've got to go and delete, because that would be very helpful. But we're going to get all that up for you here shortly. I'm sure James Franklin's press conference is already uncomfortable and up on our YouTube channel. So check all that stuff out. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Hopefully I've helped. Hopefully this is a process where you have vented your feelings and, your Sunday will be just a little bit better. And if not, I tried. We'll talk to you later this week on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel, but the conversation is never over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com.